Imagine waking up one morning to find that your home is no longer yours, that the streets you played in as a child now belong to another country, that your neighbors, people you broke breads with for years, now see you as their enemy. This was the reality for millions in 1947 when British divided India into two nations, igniting one of the worst humanitarian crises of 20th century. But amidst the violence and displacement, something extraordinary emerged. A body of literature so raw, so unflinching, that it became the voice of voiceless. Today we explore Indian partition literature, not just as texts, but as testimonies of survival, memory, and resistance. Partition of India in 1947 is one of the most cataclysmic events in South Asian history. While the moment marked the end of British colonial rule, it also led to the division of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan, and of course later Bangladesh. But partition was not just a geopolitical event, it was human tragedy of unimaginable scale. It resulted in the largest mass migration in recorded history, accompanied by horrific communal violence, loss of homes, and shattered identity. Literature became one of the most powerful mediums through which this trauma was recorded, processed, and remembered. To understand partition literature, we must grasp the context of partition itself. The British colonial administration ruled India for nearly 2 centuries. Over time, they avoided a divide and rule strategy that fostered religious divisions between Hindus and Muslims. These tensions were further exacerbated in early 20th century through separate electorates and communal representations. The political struggle for independence gained momentum with the Indian National Congress and Muslim League at the forefront. However, their visions of post-colonial India were different. Muhammad Ali Jinnah's demand for separate Muslim nation led to the Lahore Resolution in 1940 and ultimately to the creation of Pakistan. When British decided to leave India, the country was hastily divided in 1947 by Sir Cyril Ratcliffe, who had never been to India before. This led to the arbitrary demarcation of borders, especially in Punjab and Bengal. What followed was catastrophic. An estimated 10 to 15 million people were displaced, entire communities were uprooted, violence erupted, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs attacked one another, trains filled with mutilated bodies crossed new borders, women were abducted, raped, killed in the name of religion and honor. This was not just political division, it was a rupture of civilization, and literature became its witness. This was the ground on which partition literature emerged, not from abstract imagination, but from lived pain. Many people from both sides of the borders were displaced when they had to take shelter somewhere. Due to the loss of many villages, those who survived the violence had to take shelters with thousands of others already inhabiting in overcrowded places. As you can see in this picture, refugee camps were set up by Indian government, the largest, which was the home to about 300,000 people. It is estimated that 15 million people were displaced and found sheltered in refugee camps. Inside these camps, people from both the sides of the borders came in search for their near and dear ones who were lost during partition and were displaced. Women were the most affected people of the partition. It is estimated that 75,000 to 100,000 women were abducted by the members of other religious communities, murdered and sold or forced into marriages. Now let us understand what is partition literature. Partition literature refers to the body of writing, fiction, non-fiction, poetry, memoirs, oral narratives, and even cinema that seeks to document and process trauma of 1947 partition. These texts are not just historical accounts, they are emotional, political, and philosophical engagements with displacement, memory, identity, and loss. What distinguishes partition literature is its insistence on personal within the political. These narratives do not glorify nationalism, they critique it. The question how decisions made by leaders impacted ordinary people. Most importantly, they focus on the marginal voices, women, the poor, the displaced, the mad, the voiceless, who bore the brunt of the tragedy. In many ways, partition literature functions as the alternative archive, challenging official histories by highlighting emotional truths of partition. Partition literature is not about one story. It is about million shattered lives. Let's unravel its core themes. Partition literature is unified by its themes, which reflect the collective trauma and memory of a divided subcontinent. First is displacement and migration. Partition led to massive migration across Punjab, Bengal, Sindh, and Kashmir. The literature reflects the physical displacement and emotional alienation of refugees. Characters are often shown as ruthless, grappling with the loss of home and identity and stability. Communal violence. Communal riots are central to many texts. Novels and short stories unflinching portray killing, rapes, and forced conversions. These depictions humanize statistics and confront readers with the brutality of sectarian hatred. Trauma and memory. Partition literature often uses fragmented or non-linear narratives to represent trauma. Memory is portrayed as unreliable or painful, with the silences and absences speaking volumes in this way. Literature mimics the fractured psyche of survivors. Women and gendered violence. Women's bodies became battlegrounds. They were abducted, raped, converted, and either rejected by their families or forced into silence. Works like Amrita Pritam's Sprinter bring attention to the intersection of gender, violence, and honor. Identity, religion, belonging. Partition turned neighbors into enemies and people into refugees overnight. It questioned fixed notions of nationhood, religion, and identity. Characters often wrestle with the questions who am I in the divided world? And finally, silence and amnesia. A significant thing in the silence is about partition. Whether it is a silence about partition, or it is the silence of the state records, or of the survivors unable to speak, or of generations unwilling to remember, doesn't matter. Literature becomes an act of recovery, a voice where history remains mute. These aren't just stories, they are screams frozen in time. Now let's meet the architects of the literary resistance. Many writers have documented partition from different linguistics, religious, and national perspectives. Let's look at some of the most significant voices. Number one, Sadat Hasan Manto. Manto is arguably the most iconic chronicler of partition. His short stories are brutally honest, portraying the absurdities of nationalism and inhumanity of communal violence. Toba Tek Singh, for example, tells the story of an inmate in mental asylum who refuses to be transferred to Pakistan or India. Questioning the logic of borders, his stories strip away romanticism and reveal the horrors beneath. Next is Kushwant Singh. His novel Train to Pakistan captures the human dimension of partition in a Sikh village near the Indo-Pak border through the compelling characters and tragic climax. Singh explores communal harmony, betrayal, and the power of love in the face of hatred. Bisam Sahani. Based on true events, Tamas is a poignant portrayal of confusion and chaos in the days of leading to partition. It emphasizes how religious hatred is often manufactured and manipulated by those in power. Fourth is Amrita Preetham. Preetham Spinger narrates the story of Puro, a Hindu woman kidnapped by a Muslim man. It explores questions of agency, belonging, and forgiveness. Her famous poem, addressed to the Sufi poet Wazir Shah, mourns the suffering of Punjab and its daughters during partition. Intezar Hussain. Hussain writes in a poetic, allegorical style. Basti traces the life of a man who migrates from India to Pakistan, dealing with dislocation, nostalgia, and loss of cultural continuity. His writing laments not just um, as migration but fragmentation of civilization. Bapsi Sidhwa. Her work, Ice Candy Man, later known as Cracking India, was narrated through the eyes of Lenny, a young Parsi girl in Lahore. This novel offers a child's perspective on complexities of partition. It highlights how ordinary lives are caught in the storm of political upheaval. Now, let us understand a fact that partition is not just confined to Indian borders. Writers from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the diaspora also contribute to its rich perspectives. Kurul and Haidar's River of Fire trace the civilizational continuity that partition disrupts. From Bangladesh, stories of the 1971 Liberation War echoes partitions, violence, and displacement. Diasporic writers like Kamila Shamsi's work Cartography, Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children, and Urvashi Bhutalia's The Other Side of Silence explore how partition's trauma is transmitted across generations, often resurfacing as inherited memory. Thus, partition is a subcontinental narrative, not just an Indian one. So, why should we read partition literature today? Well, partition didn't end in 1947. It ghosts still walk among us because it holds a mirror to our past, and in doing so, it warns us about our present. It reminds us the borders are not just lines on maps, they are scars on lives. In a world still riven by religious intolerance, nationalism, and refugee crisis, partition literature teaches empathy, historical responsibility, and ethical remembrance. It also expands the literary canon, bringing voices from regional languages and marginalized identity to the forefront. When we read partition literature, we don't just learn about the past, we rehearse for the future. Because the next time they come to divide us, these stories might be the only thing that reminds us of our shared community. Indian literature, rather, Indian partition literature, is not merely about loss. It is about resilience, survival, and refusal to forget. Through powerful storytelling, it demands that we listen to the silence, the cries, the broken dreams, the ghosts that linger. It teaches us that literature can be a form of resistance, a piece of healing, and a testament to the indomitable human spirit. As we end today, I leave you with a question. What does it mean to carry a hope and a memory? And what stories are lost when we silence the past? Thank you.